Hello everyone, and welcome to this short video on the migration of the management of competence into elements. And this is something that, as you know, I've been going on about for a long time, 5 years in fact, since we invented competence elements, that although there's still a place for roles, which of course we used to call positions, which is where competence used to be managed, it is now better to manage competence in elements. It's much more powerful for you, and it will enable further developments of HOPS to take place that at the moment can't because of the amount of management of competence that's going on in roles. So if you're already fully familiar with the difference between roles and elements, then I'll tell you an exciting bit of news, which is I've now built you a tool for converting a role into an element and retaining all the history and files and assessors and everything else. But just in case you're not already fully familiar, I'll just run through briefly what I'm talking about with regards to roles and elements. So in the pre-support license system, before we had the HOPS support license scheme, competence was managed in roles. And what I mean by managed is the recording and supervision of the attained date, who the assessor was, when it expires, files and evidence, all that stuff. It was all managed in roles. And if I just cut over to my demo version of HOPS, here we are, and I'll go to my favorite demo department, which is Signalman. Oh dear, it's logged me out. Oh dear. Log back in again, go to my favorite department, which is Signalman, and have a look at the department competence page. There's all the roles in this department along the top in the column headings and all the names down the side, and in each cell where the rows and columns bisect is the person's status of competence in that role. And that used to be, 5 years ago, all that we had. You could record whether somebody was competent or not in Appletree East signal box. But we know that the management of competence is more complicated than that. We know that the chances are, in order to be competent in Appletree East, you didn't just have to pass one assessment. You probably had to pass an assessment or two for the signal box itself, maybe your electric token block regulations and an assessment on handling the frame in the signal box itself and the local instructions, but also your PTS and your medical and your SMS induction and all those other things that you need in order to be a properly valid signalman in Appletree East. And crucially, some of those things are exactly the same assessment that you need to do other safety critical roles as well, particularly medical and PTS, which are going to be required by the majority of safety critical roles. But the PTS that you're required in Appletree East is exactly the same as the PTS that you're required to be a guard or a driver or anything else, and competence elements allows you to manage that. So every single assessment that somebody does, everything that somebody is either competent in or not, as an individual yes/no answer, should be a element in its own right. And the management of the competence moves into the elements, the expiry date and who the assessor was, and all those things, and the files and evidence goes into the element and not into the role itself. And the role is left just to summate all of those constituent elements into a final red, green, yes or no answer for whether the person can do that role or not. But no expiry dates or anything like that. That's all managed in the competence elements, because of course each competence element could have a different expiry date. So we will still see a system generated expiry date for when that person can no longer work Appletree East signal box, and it'll just be the soonest of all the elements, but there won't be one fitted to Appletree East signal box itself. Now, many of you are already doing this, and that's fantastic, but I'm going to be encouraging you more and more to move the management of competence into elements because it's standing in the way of some other HOPS developments. And I completely understand why you might have been reluctant to do that so far, because you didn't want to lose all of the history and records that you've created by managing it in a role, which used to be a position when there was no other option. So just to have a look back in demo HOPS, if I have a look over on the left-hand side here, and I have a look at competence elements, I'll open in a new tab just so we've got both open at the same time. There it is. There's my list of competence elements. And competence elements, as I'm sure you know, they don't live in a department, but they do live in groups. So there's the commercial group, the driving group, the IDs group, the medical group, and you can allocate the permissions on a group by group basis in the same way that you would on a department by department basis. So where you have a group of elements that do really only relate to one department, that's absolutely fine, because you only allocate the signaling group of elements to the signaling people in terms of permissions to assign them and to view who's got what. But other ones like medical and PTS, you might assign to a number of different assessors across the railway, all of whom can assess medical or all of whom can assess PTS. Now, so I'll imagine that I'm in this position where up to now I've been managing competence in a role, this Apple Tree East signal box role, and I've invented my new element here called the Apple Tree East signal box knowledge element, which is where I'm now going to store the competence information that I used to store here in the role. And I'm only going to use the role now to summate all the elements together, the PTS, the medical, the element that I've just created, the Apple Tree East signal box knowledge element, and just let the role be the summation of those. So I've made a nice tool. You won't be able to see it because it's something that happens in the background that I can do for you. And I prefer to do this while you're on the phone so that I can talk you through it and you fully understand what's going on and what the next steps are, because otherwise, obviously, it could be something that could be very confusing. But while I've been talking now in the background, that's been running, and I'm going to refresh this page. And we'll hopefully see, once it takes a while to refresh, that now a load of element awards have appeared. And if I go back to the role tab, you'll see it's almost the same, but not quite. Danny Adamson, qualified, attained on the 6th of the 6th, expires on the 18th of the 5th, 2022. There it is. It's copied in the remarks. It's copied in the files. I'll have a look at the files. There they are. And it's copied in the history, obviously converted into the element format. It has not copied in people who weren't qualified in the role to start with. So this guy, Will Blythe, was only training. It hasn't copied him into the element. Let's just go back to the element holders. Here we are. Hasn't copied him in because he doesn't have the element. He's only training towards it. And there's no such thing as training in an element. Now, in this particular case, we still want the role of Apple Tree East signal box. So he'll just stay there as training, and that'll be absolutely fine. If this was a PTS type role that we're now converting into an element, we would probably want to just get rid of the role completely, because there's no such thing as training in an element, no such thing as training in PTS. You've either got it or you haven't. So we'll go back to our little slideshow. So competence will now be managed in elements, the expiry dates and everything else. We will look at them in the element rather than in the role. And going forward, in the role, the expiry dates will all just be does not expire, because no competence management will be taking place in the role. So just to recap, oh, whoops, I've gone too far. Just to recap, the conversion tool, it copies role data into an element, copy. So in my example, it is still there in the role. All it's done is copy it into the element. But then step 2, either we completely delete the role, which is appropriate for non-rostered roles such as PTS and medical. We don't need that role anymore. Or we retain the role, that should say. I wonder if I can change it. There we go. Retain the role, but we remove the files and history because that's all now saved in the element. And that's appropriate for rostered roles such as driver, where we still need the role, but the management of competence has moved into the element. So I hope that makes sense. The conversion tool sort of removes your excuse not to do it now. So please send me an email or raise a ticket if you can, and I'll help by translating an old role into a new element. If there's another reason why you can't do this, then please let me know and discuss it, because the competence management facilities in roles are going to start to be wound down in order to allow other developments to take place. Now, obviously, we're not going to wind them down until all the data is out of them, but please don't bury your heads in the sand and say, I'm not going to do this and just hope that it'll go away, because all that will happen is when you're the last person left, I'll start to just chase you up and you'll have to do it eventually. So please do discuss if there's a reason why you still don't want to do this, so that I can learn what that is and maybe build another tool to help you be able to move forward. So I really hope that's useful. I am pretty sure that the majority of HOPS admins will understand completely the significance of this tool. It enables old role data to be converted into an element in order for you to manage competence in elements. It's really important. I'm really pleased with it. It's taken a very long time and it's been a long time coming, but I'm really glad to have done it now. So thank you very much for listening. Please let me know your feedback and let me know how I can help you by converting many roles into elements. Thank you very much.